Here's the question: how'd you make your first $1 million?
Great question. So took that job in sales, and I worked 56 days a week through productive hours, through this philosophy of efficiencies, effectiveness, and statistical success. I worked 16 hours active, productive, twice as efficient. And then my statistical success wasn't from outselling people, because you know how sales territories go. They had relationships. They were 50 years old. But I knew one thing. They were doing an average of 10 appointments. So I was going to get more people available, sell half as many of them, and do twice as much work.
Sure.
So I figured out productive days. I worked 10 years and 9 months. And I was only... I made $1 million in 9 months, but I really worked.
So it was commissions you made. It was sales commissions.
I had an $80,000 salary, commission, and a great expense account, and a huge territory because
what was your territory?
Internet, the Southeast.
Okay.
But there was only 4 of us, right? And so I flew every day. I wasn't married. I was money hungry, so I kicked everyone's butt.
Were you cold calling on the phone?
I was cold calling on the phone. I was knocking. So what I would do, because I'd stay up really late hours organizing the next day. I'd take 2 or 3 flights sometimes in a day. And after I had the one appointment with the biggest law firm, I'd hustle. If it was big buildings, I'd hustle up and down the whole building, cold calling.
Sure. So you use your appointment as a way to then do as
a hub.
Yeah.
And I still do that.
Yeah.
Like I still do that in my day.
100%.
Anyway, I leveraged.
By the way, I just releasing a new product, and I was in one of the modules on prospecting. It was like that. The secret is when you're out there on the point, you want to use it as a power center and then go around. By the way, it's also I was just visiting so and so over and there.
Yeah, exactly. And you got the math of it, right?
Yeah.
So moving from there, West Publishing sold in 1995 for $3.4 billion. Now, that's the day that I decided that I was going to lose the insecurity about not being a real lawyer. Every business card I ever had, ESQ. My mom made me take the bar because she believed it was a fad. And I decided right then, like, holy moly, $3.4 billion in 1995. I need to brand myself an internet guru. Drop the lawyer.
Very early.
Yeah, people have to think of me as... This is the guy that was a VP of sales of a $17 billion revenue company that sold for $3.4 billion to, right? I had to really brand, and I did. And Anderson Consulting turned into Accenture, hired me away when the big headhunting happened in the later 90s, so 97, 98. I went up there and I raised, I was always a sales guy, but I learned that selling meant raising money.
Sure.
So I raised over $169 million for a wireless proxy server company with all the big Sand Hill Road guys. So kind of like you, I started learning the game and realized where real money was at. And so Sequoia, Texas Amarendo, Texas Pacific Amarendo, all the big VCs, HP VC, Accenture VC.
Right.
And people would stroke me back then $10 million checks after a sales presentation. It was no joke, right? And so coming from Akron, Ohio, thinking that 5 years old, that if I could make $1 million, I could buy my mom a house, a car, and retire. And that's what I believed at 5. And I did buy my mom the house and the car 9 months out of law school. That's the first money I spent.
That's great.
And it just reaffirmed at that time that money would buy love and happiness for me. It really did. But moreover, I branded myself correctly. Ended up being the CEO of the first smartphone, which was a Windows CE device, a Samsung manufactured device.
What was it called?
PC-E phone, 1999. It won Best of Comdex in 99 and 2000. But I was in another world like you. Just another world that people, you can't explain it. You can do a movie about it and they can watch it. It's still not the same thing as being there. As being there, and the same thing happened in the Silicon Valley.
What were your drugs? What drugs were you taking?
I rarely talk about this, but it was definitely...
You could talk to me.
Yeah, it was definitely cocaine. So, hopefully my 9-year-old's not watching, and my teenage daughters, I'm pretty honest.
I think it's okay for them to know.
Yeah, they know they knew I drank.
No, I think because they see who you are today. And I think like with my children, why they ended up okay was not because of the mistakes I made. It's what I did after those. If I would have kept on that road and become a serial offender, yeah, obviously it's going to really damage your kids. But I think it's great for kids to see someone come back from adversity like you did, as I did. Right? I think it's a great lesson. It's a good role model. So I think nothing to hide. But let me ask you a question. Though. I don't want to dig into it that much.
Good.
But cocaine's cocaine.
Yeah.
Here's what I don't get. Right? And I have a question for you because I'm still wondering myself. It fucking sucks, coke. It's awful. It's the worst, disgusting, dirty drug. Makes me do dirty, terrible, sexually perverse things, and I fucking love it doing it. While I'm doing it, makes so much fucking sense. I'll be with a 8-foot tall hooker with like, I mean, you know, with at her time of the month, like more back. It's terrible. But why do we do that?
Yeah,
What do you think it is? I don't know.
I think it's
so. I don't know. It's like weird, right?
Well, you know, first of all, there is an addictive biochemical reaction, right? And
Dopamine release. I get that, right?
Yeah, so that's part of it. But I think moreover too, it's an ego-based consciousness that we get into, that we need something that we don't have. And so what happens, at least in my case, I believe that I had conquered. So my dad was a compulsive gambler. Why? Because he was a multimillionaire at 31 the same way. There's nothing he felt that he couldn't do. And so what did he pick on? He picked on gambling because statistically he was trying to beat it. And that's something you can't beat. I think the same thing kind of held true with, like,
really interesting.
You know, this thing was just
it.
partying in general. And then moreover, one of my best friends, we woke up in New York City, barely making it back onto the plane to get to my daughter's like 5th birthday or something.
Yeah, it was like every Tuesday for me. Yeah.
Yeah. And cutting lines at JFK and all of that, stopping to puke on the way, you know, like all this kind of stuff. But I remember him looking at me and goes, "Why do we hate ourselves so much?" Right. And that really resonated me when my wife, you know, when I was in my mid-30s, 2 years before I lost it. See, the difference between me and most people, I stopped doing stuff and went on a really conservative spiritual journey 2 years before I lost everything.
Me too.
Yeah, like you were on the upswing.
Well, the movie's inaccurate.
Right.
So in the movie, I was doing drugs until I got sober a year before the disaster.
Yeah.
But the problem is the mistakes you make while you're on drugs and the decisions you make, you know, they come back to, my dad said, the chickens come home to roost. Yeah.
I say the truth vibrates the fastest.
Yeah.
Right. And, but yeah, my wife, you know, scared the crap out of me and scared me straight 2 years before it all went down. And I would say there's 3 warnings that happened. One was I wasn't close to my father because he missed my birthday when I was 10. And when I was 5, he left, 6 kids, married a girl closer to my age. But he was my hero. But at 10, he forgot my birthday. So I started hating him. 30, he gave me a jacket with no pockets. And he said, I'm like, "What, are you punishing me, man?" He goes, "No, I want you to know, hang this in your closet, remind you every day you cannot take anything when you die. And you are just like me. You're going to be the richest man in the cemetery and very lonely and very sad." And he gave me that warning at 30. I didn't listen. A little bit later, my best friend gave me a real warning, which this is the advice I give my kids. So if there's kids out there, listen to this advice. My best friend, who asked my wife to go study in 6th grade camp, I asked him, "Why don't you hang out with me anymore?" And he said, "Because I don't like who you hang out with." And I told him, "Well, I'm not doing the same things they're doing." And he said, "Don't lie to me. You can lie to me, but don't lie to yourself." And that kept me up at night.
I couldn't agree with you more.
It kept me up at night, man. And then when my wife hammered me, I came home 5:30 in the morning, wasted from being with Little John at the Grammy Awards, and I was already CEO of Lee Steinberg, the big notable sports agency. My wife literally was just waiting there, and she gave me that ultimatum and said, "Look, either you go in there and take stock in who you were and what you want to become, or you better learn to be lonely and broke, because I'm leaving with those beautiful kids of yours. You got to get this right."
That's powerful stuff.
It was. And so I never went to rehab. I was just scared straight.
Right.
And, you know, I'm blessed because I was never addicted to any drug. I was addicted to nicotine.
Yeah.
I was serious. Like, I chewed tobacco. I would leave a conference call to run down to the grocery store, pick up a dip, and get back on the conference call. That's how. So I know what, like, pure addiction happens, right? But I could easily give or take it. But I was an abuser and had a problem.
Alcoholism? Oh, no.
Nah, not only when I did drugs would I drink too much.
Right.
Right, because it made you drink.
Gambler?
Not too much. My problem was I didn't do it every day. Like Lee Steinberg, who I was partners with, like I'd find him naked, drunk with bottles of Sky vodka, almost dead. Right? Mine wasn't like that. I overdid it when I did it, and it was 3 or 4 because I had time. It was 3, 4, and got to be
Go
5,
back a
6.
second. Naked drunk with hookers or without hookers?
I can't. I don't know. I wasn't there.
Because usually that's like part of the
I was there
visual.
in the aftermath. I was in the aftermath.
It's like the visual. Like,
I found him, so no.
Okay.
But he's recovered and he's clean and
Awesome.
he
Good for him.
represents Mahomes, right? So I'm happy for him as well.
Let's get back to business.
Yeah, sorry.
So no, I asked you because I was just curious about the whole.
Why we do that?
Yeah, you know, it's still perplexes me today because it's almost like you're testing yourself. Can you still function and do it when you're fucked up? And then you start convincing yourself you need it.
Yeah.
Everyone else is doing it. Hey, enough of that. Let's move on to. I want to go back to how you made money. I want to really kind of extract from you. Obviously, you have a talent. You're a great speaker. You're a natural born closer. You are for sure. I can tell. All right, and you've probably honed that to a very high level. Tell me about how you made the leap. So you started this business. So you became proficient at raising money in Silicon Valley, right? You started this cell phone company. What happened?
So very successful, the cell phone company. The other one, it was disastrous, right? It was during the boom. You'll get this too, right? I'm selling something. When I raised $169 million, I remember in the back of my head going, why would we transcode the internet onto these WAP phones and Palm 7s when eventually it'll just be a handheld computer in our phone? So all this transcribing and XML is going to be worthless. But yet I'm paying $40,000 a month for a lease and, like just ridiculous stuff that goes on, knowing while I'm raising money that, God, these people are writing me checks for something that'll be obsolete.
Explain to me
So it was a middleware company. What they did is E-Trade had a website way back when.
Yeah.
And they had to put it on your old WAP phone, the flip
Okay,
phones.
yeah.
And remember that, and people would trade all the time. We were the company that transcoded it from HTML into XML so you could use it on a cell phone.
Got it.
But meanwhile, I knew the future, just like I see technologies today, I'm like, this is short-lived. Anyway, I moved to the other side of it, which was the handheld side. Because I saw a future in a handheld computer. And I was talking about this around the world as a young executive in the Silicon Valley, that convergence devices are the future. That's what we called smartphones, where you converge data and voice. And that's where I made a really good name for myself in the technology world, working with, Windows and HP and of course Samsung. Samsung became the second biggest manufacturers of phone. This is
how about Apple? Any work with Apple? Or not?
I did later on. Here's what's interesting for me is I didn't admit for years to people that I got fired. Right, I would tell people I semi-retired, and I got so lucky because I hooked up with Lee Steinberg and ran the most notable sports agency, and I had owned a golf course and a ski mountain and been a genius in technology stocks and real estate. But what I couldn't admit till I was older is I had outkicked my coverage when it came to actual knowledge. So Sarbanes-Oxley came out. We were a public company. I was a sales guy. I didn't know how to operate the second largest manufacturer of phones. You know what I mean? In America, sure. I had no idea how to operate a business at that time. And so they paid me a lot of money and asked me to step down or be the executive vice president of sales. Well, I had seen myself as a CEO now.
Right.
So there's no way I'd do that. And my investments were going so well that I just stepped into that and ended up, meeting Lee Steinberg.
Got it.
Who kind of.
So you cashed out of the whole tech thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that was how much did you walk away with from that whole experience?
So I had over $100 million. And because I piled a lot into a golf course that became the 8th best golf course in the country. It was Sam Snead's only design course in Amherst, Virginia, called Poplar Grove.
Okay.
And so the mistake I made, I always say, I wrote a book called Game Time Decision Making based off of bad assumptions. So because I didn't ask for any help, because I was so ego driven and I knew everything, and we have great relatives around us that could help us, I really believed that I had all this equity, that at any time I could walk into my private bank and say, hey, I need $5 million. So I get into a lawsuit, huge ego. I'm spending all my cash to prove that I'm right in the lawsuit. I go to my private bank in 2007 at the end of the year, and I'm like, I got lots of equity. Can I have $5 million? And they said no. And I literally, well, excuse me, I've been a, literally member of this bank. What do you mean I can't? Well, we're not lending on those type of deals right now. They're too risky. We're not going stated income.
What was the LTV on this thing that you were looking to borrow?
I had about 40. Well, I had about 40 million.
Loan to value, by the way.
Yeah. Sorry, loan to value for them.
Yeah.
I had about 40 million equity in it myself.
And
clear.
100, so 30.
120 was the value.
Yeah, so you had 33% of it was in equity.
Yeah.
They wouldn't lend you $5 million.
They wouldn't lend me $5 million.
Before the shit hit the fan, though?
It was just starting to hit. The bank had hit the fan. That was the problem.
Yeah.
So they would rather own the property, and they were securing that. So then they sent me off to other people. Well, I had 33 homes, a golf course, a ski mountain. Things were moving really fast, and I was still spending money. So I didn't move quick enough to go get more money. So what happened was, as it was happening, other banks started tightening up.
Sure.
As 2008 happened, my properties were really going down, so my equity was a little bit shorter. The golf course and ski mountain were high risk, right? So they weren't going to take stated
They weren't
income.
lending money to anybody. It was
No,
crazy.
and so then I started to sell off. Once I started to sell off, nobody wanted to lend me money. Then I missed a payment or two. Now nobody in God's green earth wanted to raise me money, and it just spiraled. Now, meanwhile, I'm the CEO of the most notable sports agency in the world. They made the movie Jerry Maguire after the firm I'm running. Lee hired me because of my financial success. So, 75% at the time of all athletes were going bankrupt about 2.5 years after they finished playing. He was using me as the icon to say, hey, look, our CEO is going to make sure that you're financially secure. I was terrified that I had to go tell him I was bankrupt because I was going to lose that job because I was worthless to him. Right, because he hired me to be a financial success. His last partner owned the Padres, right? I mean, eventually he owned the Diamondbacks at the time, Jeff Morad. I was panicked, but worse than that, man, you'll understand this. I had to go tell my mom I went bankrupt, but worse, I forgot to take her house out of.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, so I lost her house. I had to tell her she was moving.
Oh, my God.
Jewish mom. I mean, that's a tough day.
I'm sure she took it well.
You know what? Surprisingly. It was I was terrified. I thought she was gonna have a heart attack.
Nah, I'm sure
remember Elizabeth? I'm coming.
Yeah, it doesn't
Red
surprise
Fox.
me at all.
She looked at me without blinking, just like, "Are you okay? Do you need any money?"
Yeah.
It was, and that's where a switch came on my head. Is my mom's right? I'm lost. My mom would tell. Maybe your parents did as well. Throughout all the great success, you're lost. I'm really worried about you. You're lost. You're lost. My wife would say, "You're lost. I don't care about any of this." And I'd look at them, go like, what do you guys know about being lost? You made $17,000 a year being a 10th grade teacher and filling up turnstiles at the 7-Eleven. But I wanted to find what my mom had, and that was the second journey. But I wanted to do it different. I wanted to make a ton of money and show people that you can be a good, kind person, and you just have to really challenge yourself to do good and make a lot of money. And, without manipulation, overselling, back-end selling, just good selling.